disappointing, but it's kind of hard to pin it on just, that one thing. But, people are going to.
We're here with John Maloris, talking baseball playoffs. Again, if you want to call in, it's 585-633-7487. Again, that is 585-633-7487. Johnny, looking at the Tigers, you look at the A's. I mean, those were two teams that went out trade deadline, made big moves, bolstered their starting rotation. It's like, once we got to the trade deadline, once those trades were made, it was a foregone conclusion. We're going to get an A's, Tigers, ALCS. That did not happen. Neither team won a game in the playoffs. But and the teams that are going to the ALCS didn't make big moves during the trade deadline. How overrated do you think it is making a big move at the trade deadline?
Well, I mean, I think it's, it depends on, what kind of big move it is. It's all, depending upon your needs. And, maybe I wouldn't say that Detroit really needed the starting pitching, as severely as they did. For Oakland, I think it was a pretty good move. But, in the long run, when you look back at it, they pretty much traded, just about everybody for Jeff Samardzija when it really comes down to it. Looking, forward after this year. So, that's kind of disappointing for them. But, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say that, a lot of people were rooting, for Billy Beane for finally saying, you know what, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to be a big spender. I'm going to make the move that I think is going to take his team over the top. And it was smart. It was one of those things where he always needed, that extra pitching to last, through the first round. Now you had the new first round, and so it's a little bit different, but it is kind of funny to think back about how, if you remember how it all went down when they ended up pulling Austin Jackson off the field in the middle of an at-bat, with Dave Dombrowski in the dugout, and he ends up, sending a text message to Billy Beane saying, all right, you have exactly, 4 minutes to acquire Chris Sale. Just saying, all right, you know what, I went out and got the best pitcher available. Now, you find a way to get Chris Sale. So it was, it's kind of interesting to see, those two teams go at it, and even to the point where the general managers are, kind of had that nice little rivalry going between the two. But when you kind of look at it, I wouldn't really say that, making those big moves are overrated. It's just, it was unfortunate that, the one piece that they did move, for Oakland was Cespedes, and then ended up being all their power. And just in terms of Detroit, they've had, I wouldn't say that, needing a starting pitching would have been their biggest need. Obviously Anibal Sanchez went down. They eventually, had a series of injuries that, that turned out that they needed extra starting pitching. But I would have to say, I mean, the one biggest issue with them, and the reason why they haven't been successful in the playoffs, the last several years, even when they have, made it to the World Series and, into the ALCS and everything, it has been the fact that their bench isn't all that strong. And, the biggest factor is the fact that they really don't have any relief pitching. They don't have anybody that can shut anything down. They went through Joe Nathan, Joe Chamberlain, and Joakim Soria. So they had all these different pieces, and just somehow they just weren't the right guys. And the bullpen is one of those really tricky, aspects to a baseball team where you just don't know, who the hot hand is going to be. There's a few guys that are, steady, people that are able to handle, the seventh inning, eighth inning. But when it comes down to the ninth, that's a different kind of animal. And, a lot of times you see some of these guys like Luke Hochever. Unfortunately, he's not pitching right now for Kansas City, but they tried for, several years to make him a starter. It turns out he's great in the bullpen. And, that goes for a lot of guys in the Kansas City pen. And a lot of these other guys that are successful, that are relievers, or guys that weren't able to make it as starters, but, had good enough stuff to where they had one or two pitches that they could work themselves into, being successful. That's just something that Detroit hasn't been able to quite figure out to this point. So, that's just kind of when it comes down to making the moves. You just got to make the right move, for what your team needs.
I mean, you look at, okay, if you're, I know, looking at it from, a fan's point of view, it's a little different, but then what do you think is more important? You look at, like, teams that make a move for a bat. They don't always need a bat. You know, it's those teams that, like, I don't really necessarily think the A's needed Lester. I just don't see them. I didn't think that was a move that was 100% necessary. You know,
maybe overkill is what it was. They had already addressed their starting pitching and then, you know, went further at it. And I think that was kind of what
it was like. It was like you just have, like, it's just like you want more. Like once you know, like in MLB 2K, you get like somebody on, you know, out of free agency, and you just want another one of the same thing. That's almost what happened with the A's on that. What do you think? You know, what team, you know, that made a move during the, you know, the trade deadline do you think is going to benefit the most in this postseason?
The team that, obviously, you know, I think it's great for Boston. Now they finally have a good series, you know, of players that they were able to bring in now, you know, so they ended up picking up, you know, Rusney, you know, from the Dominican Republic, and they ended up picking up Cespedes now, so, you know, they're pretty happy with Villanueva behind the dish, and so they do have a bunch of guys, you know, good prospects and some good hope for at least building some steady offense. You know, and I think a lot of it was the fact that, like I said, they went through and they made that move and, you know, moved Lester. But now, you know, now it comes time to, you know, address their starting pitching. And so they do have money to spend, you know, and that's something that Tom Warner had already told Ben Sherrington. So we'll see what happens. You know, they're going to address free agent, the starting pitchers, and they're probably going to go after, you know, maybe another third baseman, you know, since Will Middlebrooks hasn't really, you know, set himself up, you know, and sustained himself at the major league level. You know, they're going to look to improve, and they do have, you know, some good guys coming up through the system, especially some pitching, and so we'll see what happens. But I think they're probably one of the teams that was, you know, one of the better benefactors, you know, of the trade deadline. Then you also look at what Tampa did, how they ended up picking up Drew Smyly. That turned out great for them.
Well, we're going to go ahead and head to break. We will be back with Johnny Maloris after the break. If you want to call in after the break, the number is 585-633-7487, and we will see you after the break.
Second to keep breathing in a moment before it's gone. You never know when love is lost until you find just what it costs to be wrong. I wonder if you think of me passing by, you think you see me coming. I wonder if you pull me in, kiss me just one time again. Do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. It's in the final hours of night. Do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. Days will keep on coming and the nights will keep on going till they're tired, falling fast asleep, and as they dream of ghosts of beats filled with desire. The chance of life is all around, a chance to take is always found. Oh, writing on the lullabies on the lonely living life. Oh, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. In the final hours of night do you remember? Was it night do you lost or found love lying by your side? The final hours of night do you remember? Lost or found love lying by your side.
Baby, you're a mystery. Tell me what's a girl gotta do? Looking at the history doesn't seem to give any clue. Just when I think I understand it all, you seem to unravel some more. Ooh, la, la, ooh, I never know nobody like you. Ooh, la, la, ooh, now I know. Baby, you're not an angel. Ooh, la, oh. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're a riddle, I'm caught up in the middle of you. I'm trying to think bigger, but I can't seem to figure it through. I wanna make it better, but now